library in this great venue here. So thanks to Beth for helping us pull this off here. I'm going to go through a series of slides here. We have a special guest with us tonight, as some of you may know. So I'll introduce her in a moment. And we're going to get into a lot of details regarding the history, probably the more recent history of the library. And Anne and Beth will help us to fill in some of the holes and whatnot. If anybody has any questions at any time, just don't hesitate to raise a hand and ask. I also put a little caveat on all of the research that I do for these things. I'm not sure it would stand the test of plagiarism or inaccuracy, and I know my college professor would be appalled. So the research that I've done is my best effort going through the files here, the files at the Historical Society.
I don't think it
And as you can imagine, a lot of old newspaper clippings and whatnot, you pull information from those, and you have your best intention to be accurate. And sometimes over time, it's amazing how details, you can see the change in the details over time when you look at a newspaper article from 50 years ago and look at one from 30 years ago. So if anybody has anything that they see here that they know is a bald-faced incorrect, please raise your hand, because what I do is I try to finalize these things and we just put it in the archives of the Historical Society just for future reference. But if you see any inaccuracies here, don't be afraid to bring it to my attention. No crying authorship here. Okay, let's look at a few dates. There are a few important dates here to remember, and we're going to come back and talk about some of these things, but the Library Association, Norway's had a very long history of having a library, going back to 1885. And a significant event occurred in 1892 when the town took over the financial support of the library. So that was their commitment by the town to actually support a very important resource. And at that point in time, it was moved, the books as they were held at that time was moved to the second floor of the Longley building. Most of us know the Longley building. It's where Green Mountain Cycle is located now. And it stayed from 1892, it stayed in that second story of the Longley building until 1938, when this building was built. And Maude Kaemmerling will help us to understand that chronology here. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, there was an addition that was put on the back. Those of you who lived here for a while, you remember the addition that was put on the back. We'll talk a little bit about that. So just keep those in mind. That's kind of the sequence, the chronology of the library. And to help us talk about those important years of the 1930s, we've gone into our Wayback Machine and we brought Maude Kaemmerling back for a guest appearance. So Sarah Maude Kaemmerling, welcome. Thank you.
Hello, welcome everybody. So glad you could be here in this very hot evening here in Maine. Anyway, I'm Sarah Maude Kaemmerling, and I just love being here in this beautiful, beautiful building, this beautiful, beautiful library. You know, Norway has always had a very special place in my heart, and I'm so pleased to be here. I've been watching this library grow and prosper since, I can't remember. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, my father, Albert Thompson, was born in a family that operated a lumber business. But as a young man, he lost a leg in a mill accident in my grandfather's lumber mill, which must have been horrible for him, don't you think? So he went to Portland to study dentistry and then opened a practice right here in Norway. Upton House, is that familiar to anyone? While he was here, he met my mother, Mary Blake. They lived here when my brother Frank was born. My memory isn't what it used to be, so that's why I have notes. But the lumber business was blood coursing through my father's veins. So eventually, he moved his young family back to Stark, New Hampshire, to rejoin the family business, where I was born in January 20th of 1874. Later, we all moved to West Virginia, where there were still dense forests of spruce and hardwoods. My father started his own lumber business there, and by the time I was a young woman, my father was a very wealthy man. My family moved to Philadelphia, where he continued to manage his lumbering enterprises and I was introduced to society, as was the custom. My family's good fortune gave me many, many blessings. I had always loved music and wanted to be a serious musician. So I went to the New England Conservatory of Music, where I studied voice and music. And then, encouraged by one of my teachers there, I spent many glorious summers studying in the great music cities in Europe. And I especially loved Vienna. Then, I returned briefly to teach back at the conservatory. As I was getting older, of course my parents were too. And after my dear older brother Fred died in 1897 in a tragic incident, Father asked me to settle down and learn the lumber business. He relied on me more and more. I helped him with the lumber operations until the death of my parents. Then I continued it myself. It was while I was living in Philadelphia that I met the man who was to become my husband. I was no longer a young woman when I married Gustav Kaemmerling in November of 1918. He was a rear admiral in the U.S. Navy who had served as his chief engineer, in Admiral Dewey's flagship, the Olympia, during the Spanish-American War. And I always called him the Admiral. As I told you earlier, I loved Norway, and I still do. This place is so full of wonderful memories for me. My mother's family, the Blakes, we visited them every year. My family eventually built a beautiful home on Rock Island, where we spent the summer months. After the Admiral died, I badly needed the solitude and peace and quiet of Maine and Lake Peninsawasi. I remember little Billy Gibson and his brother used to row me across to the island. I spent every Saturday afternoon listening to my favorite operas on the radio. I had to stop coming after I fell and broke my hip. It prevented me from using a boat to get to the island. For a long time, wanted to do something very special for this place that felt so much like home to me. Something really special. Then it came to me. Norway had a library association that started, I seem to recall, in 1885. About 200 or so members each paid $1 a year and raised money holding library fairs, baby shows, and raffles. Do you still hold an annual book sale? I hope you all volunteer to work there, not just buy books. So in 1882, the town voted to take over the support of the library, and the Norway Public Library was born. For 40 years, it was housed in 2 rooms above Ellen Longley hardware store on Main Street. Did you know that? Now let me think. Sometime in the 1930s, I let it be known that if the town could find a suitable location, I would give Norway a present. I would construct and furnish a library building. I wanted to be clear. I did not give the books, nor yet the property for the library, but the building itself and its furnishings. This building is almost a replica one I have greatly admired in Montpelier, Vermont, in the Academy. I remember being here on that day, December 18, 1938, when it was officially opened. What a joy it was for me. This is a memorial library, you know. There is a plaque out in the front foyer. It is dedicated to my parents and my brother Frank. All three of them are buried in the mausoleum I built in their honor in the cemetery by the river. Oh, you won't find a picture of me here, I hope, in this institution. I'm a rather private and practical person. My father used to say there were two things in life that he was most proud of. That, number one, he had kept out of jail. And number two, that he kept out of the newspapers. With that background, you'll be able to understand my aversion to publicity. And as you can understand, I prefer to let this library just speak for itself. Well, bless you for coming tonight and loving this library as I do, for your kind support of it and for being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mona. I'm going to share with you just a little additional information here, and we're going to get Beth to say a few words about some of the things that are going on here. So it's kind of a jumping around a little bit, so bear with me here as we kind of transition from one topic to another here. This is just kind of an overview of the original building plan. The prototype was in Vermont, and I'm sure Beth will talk a little bit about that. It's uncanny, the pictures that I've seen of the one in Vermont, it's identical. If you look at the front of it, you would never think that it was the Norway Library. And so it was copied from this library in Vermont. And here was the building committee. There are a few old-time names there that people will recognize here, people who were in town for a long time. It's interesting, Edwin S. Cummings and Fred E. Smith were acting for Maude Kaemmerling, so they were kind of her representatives here during the whole process of designing the library and acquiring property and whatnot, because she was living in Philadelphia at the time. Philip Wright is a name that I don't know that I've seen when I was doing the architectural program last month. I don't remember seeing Philip Wright's name mentioned, but he must have been a substantial contractor to take on a project this size. And it's interesting that the winning bid, you know, in today's dollars would be over $700,000. And it was dedicated, as Maude mentioned, on December 18th, 1938. Then there was a library expansion that everybody knows about in the early 2000s. And it was interesting looking through the newspaper articles on that. And Anne was very much a part of that. Weren't you, Anne? You were right in the middle of that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm now getting into territory where people who have memories and stuff. So I don't want to speak. So I guess in November 1997, there's an intention to build an addition, and the project goes out to bid, and I guess the bids came back substantially higher than what was originally planned on. So it goes out to rebid, and eventually things fall into place, and I did not find what the total cost ended up being. Do you know off the hand, Anne?
I think it was around 1.2 million.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, 1.2 million. And the number I saw in the newspaper article that came from 1997 was the original hope was for something in the 600,000 to 700,000. So it took a little time to kind of work that out, raise the money, and I'm sure make corrections to the design. And the dedication occurred in October of 2001. Construction started in 2000, fall of 2000. and was finished in October. These were the people on the building committee. Ah, we have people in the room. People in the room. On the building committee. That's who's on the building committee. And there was a groundbreaking. It was Francis Partridge and Mike Davis. This was November 2000, when the ground was broken, and it was dedicated just about a year later. It was finished. This is the addition. There's some pictures of it in the back. I'm sure everybody has seen that, but kind of tacked onto the original structure. I'm just going to give you some stats here, and then maybe have Beth, maybe you come up and talk if you'd like to. And these are numbers that Beth provided. These are from 2025 and 2024 fiscal years. So there you see a lot of visitors. They have a lot of visitors here. And it's interesting. I couldn't find anything that indicated how many people were using the subscription service out of the Longley building to get a feeling for how many people might have been borrowing books at the time. But clearly the library has changed dramatically since those days with internet access and computer access and audio tapes and all the extra stuff and technology that happened. Physical items, almost 50,000. And a lot of use of the study rooms here. It's a great place to have a quiet meeting with someone. Here's some of the circulation information. I'm not going to read this, obviously. You know, when I was teaching, we did PowerPoints all the time. We always had to practice on, don't stand here and read the PowerPoint. Because it says something about you guys not being able to read. You don't need to read, so. Any questions? Any questions when you look at some of this stuff? I think this is a pretty interesting note right here. And I don't know if Ann and Beth, I don't know if this, I found this in some of their written materials, that in 2000, the interlibrary loans were about 500.
Yeah.
And the change is obviously in internet access and more systems in place for interlibrary loans to occur.
I can talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, come by. Down here.
Angela has a question. And Nancy can talk about that. Nancy's here, and she works the circulation desk. So that has increased because we're part of Minerva, which is a statewide library system. About 65 or probably closer to 70 libraries now participate. If you use the Minerva system, you place a hold on a book, and we have it in Norway, we just pull it off the shelf and you come in and you pick it up. If we don't have it, or our copy is out and circulating, we put your request is in what is called a consolidated catalog. So any library that owns that book, whichever library pops up next, will pull that library off their shelf, put it in a tote, and it gets shipped to us. And 3 days a week, it used to be 4, but 3 days a week now because of costs. And we can go into that later if you want to talk about it. We unpack, Nancy unpacks with some help some days and packs up things because we also pull things off our shelf and send them statewide. So that's why that number is big. And I would even like it to be bigger.
Nice. It's a great resource to have. Tap into all of those things we don't have here and what things we can share. And sorry.
Before we get off the interlibrary loan slide, that it would be bigger, right? But wasn't interlibrary loan paused for a while?
The delivery service was, which in effect meant that that you couldn't request things from other libraries because with no way to send them, you could just pile up requests all day long. So they turned off the ability to request things because the delivery service was shut off, and that was because of a dispute over the van deliveries contract, which is a statewide dispute. It's nothing to do with us as an individual library, but it was a dispute.
And how long was it turned off for? 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
So the number would be higher, right?
Oh, this was fiscal year '24, so was that fiscal year '24 or '25?
It
I
was
think-
a year ago, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Beth,
Yes.
also, if we can't get that book from Maine, we also can get it from anywhere in the country. So don't despair if we can't get it from either the Missouri catalog or the Maine state catalog, but we can get it from the world catalog. So that's really a good thing.
Maine State Library still does all of those kinds of requests for us, and those are done the old-fashioned way through the mail. And we can make it a library-to-library request, and then you still get your.
Yeah. Maude Kaemmerling was clearly very generous with her time and her money in particular. Obviously, this is the Norway Memorial Library. We were trying to figure out which house was the John Blake house on Cottage Street. We don't know that, but she apparently bought that house and gave it to the First Universalist Church. This would have been last century. I mean, they would have been back in the 20s and 30s at some point. She bought the C.A. Stevens home, the laboratory. I didn't realize this is kind of interesting. She purchased that, and then she gave it to the Central Maine County Hospital Association, and they in turn sold it and took the proceeds to establish the hospital down here, Stevens Memorial. That's where some of the money came from. There was a scholarship at Amherst College. I went online to see if I could find if there was a designated scholarship, and I couldn't find anything under the Kaemmerling name. Pretty substantial request to the Philadelphia Church. And this one's really notable because we had somebody come in here who was familiar with this. Is that right, Beth? Who was familiar with the state park?
He called.
Yeah, down in West Virginia. She donated a lot of land down there, and they created a state park in their name. They were a big deal. The Thompson family was a big deal in the area of West Virginia where the lumbering operations were. And the tragic story about her brother being shot. He was apparently, their company, the Thompson company, was buying a bankrupted lumbering company, and a competitor had some falling out with the Thompson family, and the competitor confronted 36-year-old Frank Thompson on a train traveling down in West Virginia. And there was an altercation, and they were both carrying guns, because everybody carried guns back in those days. And they shot 3 shots. Each of them shot 3 shots at each other on a train car. and Frank Thompson got hit in the stomach, apparently, and died like a day later. He died very tragically in this altercation with a disgruntled competitor. And so Maude gave up her musical career, and she came back to help run the family business. So she lost her parents and her brother at an early age. So yeah, kind of a tragic story. When you read the newspaper article about it, this guy who shot him was near the world. Sorry, Maude. I got some pictures. I don't know the date of this. Gustav was about 16 years older than she was. And I don't remember just exactly when they were married, but as she mentioned, he was married somewhat later in life. He was 16 years older. She was in high society in Philadelphia. Her family had that much money. They were part of high society. And the other picture here, I don't know what the age is here, but she's standing next to her cousin, who she was very close to, and I think she spent time out on the island. Now, Rock Island out there, for anybody that knows Norway Lake, is Dow's Island. And so the Kaemmerlings went out there, and The island back before there was anything on it was just this rocky promontory like some of those other islands are, those little outcroppings are, and they ended up building the cement around it, or they built some sort of containment, filled it, backfilled it, and had a great conversation with Rick Dow just a week ago, in the past week, about his remembering what it was like to live out there. So the Kaemmerlings built that cottage out there, and I didn't think to ask him, when did they build it? Because the Dow family ended up in the ownership of the cottage after the Kaemmerlings had it. And she used to love going out there, and I think she would go out there with her cousin until she fell and hurt her hip, and she couldn't make the trips anymore. So I don't know exactly the year the Dows ended up with the ownership.
So the house that's on the island now was built by the Kaemmerlings?
Correct. Yep. That was kind of cool. That was kind of interesting to find that out. So anyway, she was very generous, very, very generous. And she really wanted to remember her parents and particularly her brother who died very tragically. All right. Thank you for coming.
Sorry, that was a preemptive. I'm going to take a turn. I'm sorry. I wanted to show you a picture. Can you see this picture? So this is the Gary Library in Montpelier, Vermont. I know. I went there last Friday. I just happened to be going to Vermont, kind of a last-minute decision, and I said we need to go through Montpelier so I can look at this library. It's on the campus of the Vermont College of Fine Arts, which used to be, I guess, an academy, and I don't know what the academy was. And last year it was sold to a group called the Montpelier Performing Arts Hub. So when you look at it from the outside, it looks just like this library, except that the front porch is shorter, very close to the ground. And there's a big extension behind us. So right behind me, instead of a window, is a great big door, an arched doorway. And on the other side of the fireplace too. And it's a big square room beyond there. We need that. But when you come into the building, into their building, you would think, wow, this is just like the Norway Library. It's not exactly the same. There are some small differences. I took a picture, which I'm going to show to staff, of a chair that's just like one of these chairs. So Maude was detailed. She knew what she wanted, and I bet she had a role in things as detailed as what chairs were going to be in the library that she loved for the town. All of that to say, the other thing that struck me is this town has supported this library so well, because it shows, when you walk in the building, it shows that this town is supported, that this library is supported. Nothing against that library, but I kind of thought, ooh, what could be, you know? Obviously it's gone through some changes, it's gone through ownership, different schools have owned it, and it's now a performing arts center. But we are very blessed to have this asset in our community. So that's what struck me by visiting the property. And I just wanted to say a few things, 4 things that you can do to support your library, whether it's Norway Library or Paris or whatever library in the Oxford Hills you attend, or if you are from another state and you're here in the summer. These are some things you can do to support your library. One is get a library card. Many of you have them, and I'm preaching to the choir, I realize. Number 2 is use your library card. Even if you don't need a physical book because you buy the physical books you want, there are things you can do with your library card that you may not be aware of. You can get free ebooks and free audiobooks. You can stream video. You can access newspapers from all over the world. You can look at magazines online through Maine's digital library. There are all kinds of things you can do. And I will say that almost anything you get from your library is good for you. You can feel really good about using the library. Some other things in particular you can do to support Norway Library is join the Friends of Norway Memorial Library. And if you do that before next Friday, either renew or join, your membership form will go into a drawing to win one of our 3 membership prizes, which also in turn support local garden and growing organizations. The fourth thing, part B of number 3, is consider becoming a not only a member of Friends, but also serving on the board of directors of the Friends of the Library. That group raises money, but also supports programming, purchases all of our audio. We run the book sales, we do newsletters, there's a lot of things going there. So that's a volunteer opportunity. And the second volunteer opportunity, and the fourth thing you can do, is consider being a trustee of the Norway Memorial Library. And that is a volunteer position. You're elected, an elected official of the town of Norway, and you have a real role in the way this library will continue to serve this community. It's not just taking care of the building, that is part of it, but you can really have an impact in that role. So if you're looking for something to do in a little bit of your spare time, and the library is a cause that you care about, think about that. The only other things I want to say is 1 week from Thursday night, there's a concert here. We have just a few tickets left to hear Don and Judy Mayberry and their friends Rusty Wiltshire and Janine Louvier will perform a concert from 7 to 8 p.m. August 21st. And I think that's it.
Well, we have a lot of knowledge here. Does anybody have any questions about some of the stuff we talked about or anything that you kind of...
Yeah, the library in Montpelier, was that turned into performing arts, or is it on the campus of what was turned into performing arts?
It's still the campus of fine arts, the Vermont College of Fine Arts, but that library, which is right on, I think it's College Street, is still on that campus, but it's a performing arts center.
No longer a library.
No, but you can still see stacks around the edges of the room, and basically their stage is right here, and then seating is there, and they are fundraising to do things like add an elevator so that people who use the building have access to the bathrooms, and all kinds of things.
I don't have a question, but I thought I would point out for folks who may not know the 2 wonderful pictures that we have on this Libby, which I believe was painted by the Acres, and having a brain cramp about who's on the top.
Zeb Merchant.
Yes. I think those are both.
Was Zeb Merchant on the store? Yes. Does everybody remember last month we talked about Merchant's store? The quiz on this, I'm tying it all together. So that's Merchant's house.
I forgot to tell you, we just added this book, and it's called The Industrialist and the Mountaineer, the Eastman Thompson Feud, and the Struggle for West Virginia's Timber Frontier. The Thompsons in this are the Thompsons that were Maude's parents, and this tells the story of Frank. Yeah?
Yeah, that's cool. Anything else? Yeah.
I might have a question for Charles, actually. Those 2 rooms over Longley's that were the original library, is there any trace of them now, or is it just redone and all gone, or do you know?
I think the rooms are there, but if you ever went up there, you wouldn't know that they had been library. They didn't, I don't think they changed the walls or anything like that.
Yeah. Interesting, thank you.
It was mentioned in one of the newspaper articles about that. It was supposedly a very comfortable place to go and sit and read a book. Second floor alone.
The stairs were killers, though.
Where is that lake you speak of, Norway?
Oh, Norway Lake? Well, if you head this way down Main Street, it's the lake on your right that you come to.
That's Tennessee, Wasson.
Sorry.
Same thing. Oh, okay. And so, little island there, that house that you see?
Well, if you go halfway up the lake, there's a series of islands. And Dow's Island, where the Kaemmerling property was, is the second island up the lake. If you're
Oh.
going from the lake road up to the end of the lake. Yeah. Yeah, Rick shared a lot of, Jancie was there, Brian was there. Rick shared some fun stories about that cottage. If you remember growing up in the Kaemmerling cottage, which was really neat. Yeah. Kind of cool to think they were the ones that built that or developed that.
Yeah, you had mentioned, Brad, on the slide, Jonathan Blake House on Cottage Street. Do you or anyone know which building that was? I was just curious.
Yeah.
I lived on Cottage Street growing up, so that's why
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that and the stuff that I did when I was in the architecture.
Because right beside the church, the house that's there is owned by the church, and they call it the Blake House.
Oh, okay. Must have been right there.
But I don't, she also gave maybe a Stein, I'm not sure what kind of piano, but the piano that's in the Universalist Church, she donated that to. Might be a Stein, all I know is it's a really good piano.
It was, yeah, she did donate that. You had to mention that, I didn't believe it. I think left it off the list. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming.